I was reborn back to my 11th grade year. Looking at the girl beside me, winking playfully, I only felt a bitter irony. In my previous life, I accepted her invitation to her wedding. The groom turned out to be my ex-boyfriend, Ken. They shamelessly flaunted their love in front of friends and family, even personally handing me the wedding bouquet. Expressionless, I threw the bouquet straight at her. The sharp decorations on it sliced a line across her face. My ex-boyfriend rushed forward and shoved me hard. I fell into a pool of water. As I struggled, slowly losing my breath, their malicious eyes became even clearer. A sudden bell rang. I lifted my head from the desk, unconsciously gasping for air, only to find the surroundings eerily familiar. Slowly, I looked down. In my line of sight was a red school uniform. The textbook left forgotten on the left side of my desk made me wonder if I was seeing things. The girl beside me giggled, talking to me. She tore open a bag of spicy duck neck and brought it to my mouth. It was Lynn, my best friend. "Try a piece. Ken bought it." She winked at me, her eyes ambiguously darting between me and Ken, who was diligently reading a book in front. Unexpectedly, a piece of spicy duck neck was shoved into my mouth. I quickly opened the literature textbook next to me. The first page clearly displayed, "Mid-semester break of 11th grade." I had truly been reborn back to my 11th grade year, a time when Ken and I had only recently broken up. Back then, he pursued me, but always made me delude myself into thinking he wanted to get back together. I often discussed his thoughts with Lynn. Lynn was frank and outgoing, always advising me not to be too hard on myself. Then she would go and ask Ken, helping me grasp the situation. I regarded her as my personal scout, but my feelings for Ken lingered. They lasted until high school graduation, yet I never waited for him to turn back. I used to be an excellent student, but in 11th grade, I dedicated all my thoughts to Ken, causing my grades to plummet uncontrollably. In the end, he and she got into university. I only managed to get into a bottom-ranked college. We still lived in the same city, but never met again. I gradually let go of a relationship that should have ended long ago and stopped mentioning him in front of Lynn. It wasn't until after university graduation that Lynn told me she was getting married. I knew she had a boyfriend but had never met him. Lynn never complained about her boyfriend, so I didn't feel the need to interfere, avoiding any awkwardness. Since ancient times, best friends and boyfriends have always been two irreconcilable factions. No one expected the groom to be Ken. I sat at the table reserved for old classmates, the lively atmosphere seemingly isolating me. I sternly asked a male student next to me who was cheerfully drinking, "When did they start?" His face flushed, he slurred with a strong smell of alcohol. "You don't know? Since the summer break of 11th grade. A single sentence, like a snapping thread in my mind, broke. 11th grade summer break? Was that the break when he and I were still together? After school reopened, she would ask for updates every day, telling me, "Don't worry, he still likes you." 11th grade, I replayed everything from my previous life. The gut-wrenching pain felt as if it had just happened a second ago, my gaze fixed on Lynn. She put down the duck neck, smiling as she wiped her face. "Why are you looking at me like that? Do I have chili sauce on my face?" I shook my head. Such a radiant person, yet so two-faced. "Sophie and Ken, Ms. Lee wants to see you in the office." Someone called from outside the door. I spat the duck neck into the trash bag and, half excited, half calm, walked out. As I passed Ken's seat, I didn't even spare him a glance. He seemed a little startled, surprised, and followed me out. I truly loathed that face. Reborn into this life, I absolutely had to seize the opportunity, not repeat my mistakes, and not let them live in peace. Sophie and Ken. On October 1st, the school has a cultural performance. The principal said for you two to be the MCs, no problem, right? Ms. Lee, our homeroom teacher, got straight to the point after calling us in. Looking at her familiar, friendly face, my eyes suddenly stung. She was our literature teacher. I was the vice captain for literature. From the beginning of 10th grade until now, my literature scores had never disappointed her. "No problem, Ms. Lee," I immediately replied. Ken's handsome face seemed to be bathed in spring sunlight. In my previous life, at this moment, I would have smiled brightly, following Ken back to class. When the bell for class rang, Lynn nudged my arm with her elbow and asked, "What's got you so happy?" I used my pen to write MCs on a scrap of paper. She looked admiring. "You're always the first choice for this kind of thing. I'm so jealous of you." I only felt she was sincere. Because out of 4 MCs, 2 females were us, and if only one female was needed, it would definitely be me. but with only 1 day left until October 1st, I sprained my ankle after stepping on a rock during physical education class. In the end, the person who stood on stage in my place as MC was Lynn. Lynn, who witnessed my suffering every day, had a perfectly synchronized performance with Ken. I followed the script of my previous life. As soon as the bell for class rang, I returned to my seat. Sure enough, Lynn immediately leaned over, her eyes sparkling as always, and asked, "What's wrong?" I didn't want to say it, so I pretended to be troubled, scratching my head, pulling out a math textbook from the messy pile of books, and saying, "I have to study hard. My grades have dropped." She burst out laughing, almost blurting out, "Your 60-point math score can drop even further." I just smiled, saying nothing. Very quickly, Lynn realized I wasn't joking. I was actually studying math, the only subject that had been my weakness before my academic performance plummeted. Her surprised eyes seemed to question if I had suddenly awakened. During recess, she rushed to my side, not caring that her perfectly parted hair was disheveled. Her voice carried a hint of urgency. "On October 1st, the school has a cultural performance. Our class is singing My Country and I. I heard they chose you and Ken to be the MCs." I didn't even look up, continuing to doodle aimlessly on a scrap of paper, casually replying, "Oh, really? I didn't know. I'm so jealous of you. You're always the first choice for these kinds of things." My heart suddenly surged. It was that very line. I vaguely remembered that in my previous life, during physical education class, I couldn't find my sneakers and had to reluctantly wear flat-soled shoes to play basketball. And then, at that very moment, I stepped on a rock on the court and sprained my ankle. The next day, my shoes coincidentally appeared in the laundry room. I didn't know if there was some untold mystery behind this. Just like in my previous life, every day I practiced the script with Ken. He also treated it as just a task, not saying any superfluous words. This only made me realize how infatuated I was with love in my past life. Very quickly, it was the morning of September 30th. Lynn and I, as usual, left the dormitory together. She suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, I forgot my meal card. You go eat first, I'll come later." I pulled her hand back, holding up my meal card. "I have mine, use mine." She took my hand, smiling. "I know you're thoughtful, but you'll need it for lunch too. You can't use yours for both meals." I tried to appear even more considerate. "There's still time, I'll go with you." Hearing this, her expression indeed stiffened slightly. She released my hand and rushed off. "It's okay, you go first. I left my homework on the desk. If I don't make it back in time, please submit it for me." I watched her disappear around the bend, my hand tightening around the bunch of keys in my pocket, unable to suppress a smile. "Then go back. My sneakers are safely locked in my locker." To be honest, I didn't know if Lynn was the one who messed with my shoes, but my strong intuition told me not to trust her. She hurried back, just barely making it to class at the last minute. Before she could even catch her breath, an unreadable emotion was plastered on her flushed face. I opened my eyes wide, feigning innocence, and asked, "Did you get your meal card? Today's Wednesday. The cafeteria has sweet and sour pork ribs." She seemed distracted, but I didn't care. In my heart, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. At lunch in the cafeteria, we carried our trays to an empty table. After only a few bites of sweet and sour pork ribs, Lynn's expression suddenly changed. Seeing her grimacing face, I cooperatively asked, "What's wrong?" She clutched her stomach, slowly raising her face, still looking uncomfortable. "My stomach hurts so much. I want to go lie down for a bit, but I don't have my room key. Can I borrow yours? You just eat slowly." I nodded, handing her the entire bunch of keys, including the locker key, then lowered my head and continued eating. 3 minutes after she left, I stood up and followed the direction she took back to the dormitory. I saw her crouching in front of my locker, one hand holding the padlock, the other twisting a key. "What are you doing?" My voice was as cold as a ghost in the winter night. Lynn flinched, her entire body trembling. Guiltily, she immediately dropped her hand, quickly looking at me, stuttering, I ran out of sanitary pads. I wanted to borrow one of yours temporarily." I said nothing. I opened the locker, took a pad from the compartment next to it, and handed it to her. Her hand touched mine when she took it, her palm damp. "Thank you." She forced a smile, looking extremely ugly, then turned and went into the restroom. When she came out, my sneakers were already placed next to my bed. I smiled at her. "You go rest." Her eyes slightly avoided mine as she passed me, returning to her spot. In the afternoon, during physical education class, Lynn intended to raise her hand to ask for a break due to discomfort. I pulled her hand down, hooked my arm through hers, and whispered, "Today's basketball throwing counts towards our regular grades. You can tough it out a bit." She wavered before my sincere, "It's all for you" gaze. In the end, she said nothing. The girls lined up to throw hoops one by one. Lynn stood in front of me. This time, there was no rock under my feet. On October 1st, I wore a sparkling rhinestone dress and appeared on stage with Ken. The lights shone on us. Looking down at the crowd below, I felt as if I had regained what I had lost. The school gave us 3 days off. I was organizing my books on my desk, preparing to take them home to study. According to my memory, during these 3 days, they had a gathering without me. I looked towards Ken. Lynn was talking to them. Our eyes met in the air. Sure enough, she walked over. "Want to hang out tomorrow?" I pretended not to know who was going. She tilted her head, looking at the group of friends, counting on her fingers. Min, Quan, Ilin, Kevin, Alex, and Ken. I lowered my eyes, putting the last book into my bag. In her eyes, this was a refusal by action. "Oh, I know you're shy, but we broke up, so let's just be friends again." I still said nothing. She chattered on. "If you really feel awkward, then never mind." I looked up at her, smiling brightly. "I understand what you mean." "Thank you, Lynn." She paused for a second, then awkwardly pulled up the corners of her mouth. "That's more like it." I clearly saw his changing expression. Stepping out of the framework of what was called our friendship, I suddenly saw so many things clearly. In my previous life, faced with his earnest invitation, I could never erase the boundary of our breakup. Then, alone at home, I read books and pondered. After the break, he told me what happened that day. "Listen, Sophie, don't get too close to Jill. When we went out, she clung to Ken the whole time, constantly calling him Kenji, Kenji. I felt second-hand embarrassment for you." The funniest thing was that I believed him. The next day, I woke up really early, sat in front of the mirror for a long time staring at myself, then took out a pair of brightly colored contact lenses. Ken once said my eyes were beautiful, so I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I changed into a pristine white dress, my long, smooth hair flowing down to my waist. In the mirror, my face, full of youthful collagen, suddenly filled me with a sense of satisfaction. At 10:30 a.m., I arrived at the park as planned. Not everyone had arrived, but Ken and Lynn were already there. I greeted them naturally. I saw Ken's eyes, initially surprised, then softening. "Lynn, try this." I took a newly bought red bean-colored lipstick from my bag and handed it to her. "The color you're using is too red." I looked at her thick eyeliner and sparkling eyeshadow. A 16-year-old with the soul of a 27-year-old like me just wanted to laugh. Lynn clearly hadn't reacted yet. Her surprised and embarrassed expressions were fully observed by Ken. "Hi everyone, you're here early?" A voice rang out from behind the rock garden. The rest of the group waved to us. Jill's smiling eyes swept between me and Ken. She deliberately said, "Sophie looks so pretty today. Whoever didn't cherish her must be regretting it to death." Ken's best friend Kevin nudged her with his elbow, muttering, "What are you saying?" Jill rolled her eyes and retorted, "I said it wrong. Our school uniform is so ugly, it hides my beauty." Daniel intervened to mediate, regretting it to death. "If I knew Sophie was this beautiful, I should have made a move too." I pulled Lynn's hand, deliberately walking past Ken to Daniel's side. "Then I'll stand a little closer to you so you can enjoy my beauty up close." The whole journey was filled with cheerful chatter and laughter, but I never heard Ken's voice. I also didn't turn to look. I held Lynn's hand, and there was no reason to let go. I secretly smiled. These two were truly more awkward than the other. Squinting into the distance, I saw someone selling balloons ahead. Long sticks, round balloons with small wings on both sides made my eyes light up. Daniel glanced at me, then quickly walked over. In our sight, he returned with 4 balloons in his hand. 4 balloons, 4 different designs. Lynn smiled, intending to take the only winged one, but Daniel handed her a plain cartoon balloon instead. Then he gave the winged one to me. Everyone paused for a moment, but I understood clearly. Daniel was my cousin. This was a secret no one knew. Even so, a corner of my heart was fiercely touched, like a general in armor suddenly asked, "Is the armor heavy? Does the spear hurt when it pierces?" I held the winged balloon, sincerely telling my thoughtful cousin, "Thank you." In the corner of my eye, Ken's expression grew even more unpleasant. We continued walking, about to leave the park. There were no more trees for shelter, and a strong wind blew my balloon. It flew away, leaving only the bare stick. "I'll buy you another one," a deep voice said from behind. It was Ken. Then his tall figure walked past me. I pretended to be moved, pulling Lynn's sleeve. She didn't respond, just stared at Ken's retreating back, her gaze even sharper than the summer sun. I silently followed her gaze, remembering his malicious eyes when he pushed me into the water, and in my heart, I only let out a cold laugh. It had only just begun. That entire day, I felt joyful. Lynn, on the other hand, had to force smiles. Next to the park was a shopping mall with lots of food and entertainment. It was crowded on the holiday, so we chose a restaurant with a short waiting time. Ken sat silently to my right, which surprised me a little. I looked at Lynn. "Come here, Lynn, sit next to me." She pretended to hesitate, then feigned comfort and sat down to Ken's right. "Oh, I'll just sit here," I shrugged. No competition. Daniel held the menu, looked up, and asked, "Does anyone have any dietary restrictions?" I shook my head along with everyone else. "Just order, I'm easy to please. Anyway, I didn't come for the meal." Daniel made a symbolic order of a few dishes, gently asked everyone's preferences, then passed the menu. Jill flipped through the menu, saying, "The spicy chicken here is delicious." Suddenly, Ken, who had been silent, spoke up, "Sophie doesn't eat spicy food." Immediately, all eyes turned to me and him. I saw Jill trying to suppress a smile, knowing immediately that she was causing trouble again. She was exactly the type to enjoy a spectacle, the more chaotic the better. I found it amusing, even a little cute. I calmly waved my hand. "I can eat a little spicy food. Don't avoid it because of me." The spicy chicken dish was served. I rotated the Lazy Susan, stopping it precisely in front of Lynn. Lynn is great at eating spicy food. "See if it's as good as Jill says." Ken's expression changed slightly, glancing at Lynn. Lynn picked up a piece, a radiant smile on her face. "It's really good." "Is it really good? Your shady boyfriend accommodates his ex-girlfriend's tastes, and you can still eat that." "Kenji, try some. I remember you can eat spicy food too." I tilted my head, propping my chin with my hand, my eyes sparkling. Ken almost immediately tore his gaze from Lynn, and our eyes met in the air. He seemed surprised to hear his name from my mouth. I retracted my gaze, looking at my friends sitting opposite. Each of them was hunched over, silently eating, trying to minimize their presence. The scene almost made me burst out laughing. This meal was truly full of drama. Some actors were excellent, some watched avidly for the drama, some were vaguely clueless, and some were so scared they gritted their teeth. Truly spectacular. The holiday was barely over when the monthly exam was approaching. Although it was just a regular exam, it was the first exam since my rebirth. In my previous life, around this time, my academic results plummeted uncontrollably, but in this life, I absolutely had to seize the opportunity. Not just the monthly exam, I also made good use of my evening self-study time. When I encountered a difficult math problem, I would take my textbook to Daniel for an explanation. His gentle voice, combined with his simple, easy-to-understand explanations, suddenly made everything clear to me. Ken still sat there, expressionless, silently listening to his deskmate, who was also his ex-girlfriend, hotly debating homework. I wondered how much he actually heard. On the way back to the dormitory, Lynn stared blankly at the male students in front. The dim light suddenly gave me an idea, to break down another layer of defense in her heart. "Ken," I called out unexpectedly. Lynn almost immediately turned to look ahead. Ken also stopped. I gently pushed Lynn's arm, feigning shyness and pleading. "You go back first. I have something I want to tell him." Lynn's eyes scanned back and forth between Ken and me, then she nodded and left. I felt she was unwilling, and that was exactly the effect I wanted. She didn't dare to be confrontational with me, especially when she was at a disadvantage. Ken stood still, waiting for me to approach. I took a Lucky Charm pouch from my pocket and handed it to him. "Don't misunderstand anything. I got this for you during the summer break. I haven't used it, so I'm giving it to you." He froze slightly, looking down at his beautiful hand holding the small charm pouch. "They say if you put it under your pillow, it'll help you study well." I took a deep breath, pretending to be nonchalant. "Good night." I didn't turn back, and I didn't know how he reacted. I only guessed that his heart must be in turmoil. The trick wasn't sophisticated, but with the right person, it was clearly effective. After more than 10 years, I still understood Ken very well. As soon as I entered the dormitory, I saw Lynn lying on her bed, looking at me. I offered a friendly smile, not responding to her burning gaze. Lynn had been crying. The next day, after the monthly exam results were posted, she and Ken walked into the classroom, one after the other. She lay face down on her desk, her shoulders trembling as she cried. Ken's face was flushed. When our eyes met, he quickly turned away, his expression filled with annoyance and resentment. Did they argue? I narrowed my eyes and smiled. Faster than I expected. I paid no attention to them. They were probably in a cold war now. Yesterday, the scoreboard had been posted. I ranked 6th in the entire grade, usually only belonging to the average to good students. This time, thanks to my math score, I shot up like a rocket. Lynn was stunned then. Just as the teacher entered the classroom, she shouted loudly, "Sophie, even if you're in a hurry, you can't surpass Ken's math score. Don't lie to yourself anymore." I was frozen in place. In my previous life, I had never witnessed such a dramatic scene. Ken and I sat in the same examination room, positions close to each other. Our math teacher was a strict old man, very principled. But with Ken as class president and me as vice captain for literature, he was a bit suspicious of the authenticity of the results. I took a deep breath. In the suffocating atmosphere, I raised my hand and said, "Sir, I can retake the exam, but I also find Lynn's score a bit unusual." The whole class froze. No one expected that Lynn and I, usually as close as twins, would openly confront each other today. Lynn's eyes, looking at me, were a mix of panic and astonishment. I met her gaze calmly and replied, "If you suspect one person of progress, why not suspect everyone?" In fact, Lynn's score hadn't increased much, but whether she was stupid or naive, she not only prepared to cheat right in front of me but also dared to try and frame me. I sat next to Ken. The person to his right was also quite strict. If I really wanted to cheat, it wouldn't be impossible. The old teacher crossed his arms over his chest, silently watching this showdown, then raised his left hand and patted the shoulder of a male student sitting in a VIP seat. "Go call the homeroom teacher." Ms. Lee's hurried footsteps echoed, clearly carrying worry. As soon as she entered, she forced a smile and pulled Lynn and me outside. As soon as we left, we heard the old teacher calmly say, "Ms. Lee, I will hold onto the exam papers." I knew I would surely win this round. The results were quickly verified. Not only did I not cheat, but my score was 2 points higher than what was on the scoreboard. In contrast, Lynn's score plummeted dramatically. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ms. Lee held the 2 exam papers in front of the math teacher and sternly declared, "Lynn cheated on the exam, a serious offense. Write a self-criticism report and read it in front of the entire school on Monday, then apologize to Sophie Tran." Her face was pale, tears welling up in her eyes. Watching the teacher's figure leave, she whispered, "What's the point of doing that?" I rubbed my ear, feeling a little sarcastic. Exactly, what's the point? After saying that, I walked past her back to my seat, letting my friends around me whisper and gossip. In the quiet space, that sound was like the gnawing of a demon on Lynn's self-esteem. I don't know when Daniel walked over to me, tapping his finger on the desk. "You've improved a lot." His face wore a satisfied smile. "Congratulations," he joked. "Lily and I were just having fun. It's because Mr. Pho teaches so well." We chatted as if nothing had happened. The class gradually livened up again, returning to its usual bustling atmosphere. Jill walked over to me, spread her exam paper on my desk, and pointed to a question. "Sophie, how do you solve this problem?" I took out my pen, preparing to draw a diagram on a scrap of paper. Seeing her still standing, I looked around, intending to move one seat to the right to make it easier to explain. "Just say it like this," Jill said, placing her hand on my shoulder. "I don't want to sit in his seat. You shouldn't get involved either." I didn't know how many people in the noisy classroom heard that remark, but I didn't care. Amidst the growing laughter and chatter, Ken suddenly slammed his pen on the desk with a pop. He stood up abruptly, brushed past Lynn, and walked straight out. Lynn paused for 2 seconds, then followed. Daniel also clearly noticed their actions, casting a probing glance at me. I shrugged, feigning innocence. A second later, I continued to solve the problem. Just 5 minutes later, Lynn burst into the classroom, sobbing. With a bang, she slammed the classroom door shut. Almost all eyes turned to her. Immediately after, Ken also walked in, his face gloomy. When he accidentally met my gaze, he quickly turned away, his expression full of annoyance and resentment. I glanced to my right and saw Lynn huddled over her desk, trembling and crying, only feeling utterly bored. What school doesn't have walls with ears? The story between Ken and Lynn had spread throughout the school. Everyone recounted it as if they had witnessed it themselves, even fabricating a clear and logical timeline. The conclusion was that the literature ace, Ken, while dating the art goddess, Sophie Tran, cheated with her best friend Lynn. The truth was exposed under the sunlight. I felt a calm I had never known, only my moist eyes reminding me of how painful years of unrequited love and betrayal had been. I became the center of attention again. Everywhere I went, eyes followed me. I lowered my head, wiping away tears, but in my heart I wondered, does this scene resemble Aunt Qiang Yao's dramas? Do I look good crying like this? I went to school, ate, and went to the supermarket with eyes swollen like peaches. I even cheerfully greeted people. Everyone who saw me felt indignant on my behalf. Are you proud of yourself? Lynn stood by the hot water dispenser, holding her water bottle, and said coldly. Proud of what? I turned off the tap, stood up, and looked down at her. My best friend paired up with my boyfriend. I should be the one crying. The water room, usually deserted, was now crowded with people lining up. I knew most of them were there to gossip. We broke up, Lynn suddenly raised her voice. I was a little surprised. In my previous life, they even got married. I thought their relationship was solid, but it turned out to be nothing more. I held my glass of water and turned around. The people behind me automatically made way. I turned my back, also deliberately raising my voice. You two getting together, you didn't even bother to tell me. Breaking up, even less need to mention it. Sophie Tran isn't exactly a good person either. I paused slightly but didn't turn to look at her face, twisted with agitation. You just broke up with Ken and immediately started flirting with Daniel. You think I don't know? Your mom is the principal. Your schemes are truly terrifying. You've got both of them spinning around you like a top. My chest heaved violently. In my previous life, no matter how harsh the words were, it was never like this. I turned to look at her, my eyes calm. Fabricating and slandering is illegal, Lynn. I no longer paid attention to her incoherent words behind me, only listening to the increasingly lively chatter around me. My goal had been achieved. Even if each person only spit out one sentence, it was enough to drown her. Lynn couldn't bear the pressure and dropped out of school. The storm of public opinion gradually subsided with the withdrawal of the main character, but Ken was unaffected by the gossip. His resilience was strangely strong. I didn't intend to let him off either. For someone with such a strong psyche, only a soft emotional strategy would work. Suppressing my disgust, I initiated conversations with him again, smiling as I used to. I sought him out to ask for help with geography, his best subject. My strange behavior almost made everyone think I was crazy, labeling me love-struck. No one felt sorry for me. Ken, initially in disbelief, then began to sink into the delusion that I couldn't live without him, and once again tried hard to win me over. The teachers all pretended not to see. As long as it wasn't too excessive, no one wanted to hinder two promising students from getting into top universities. During lunch break in the cafeteria, I held my chopsticks, propped my chin, and looked around. Ken brought 2 trays of food and gently placed them in front of me, then reached for my hand. I skillfully avoided his touch, smiling. You haven't apologized to me yet. Ken froze slightly, retracting his hand and avoiding my gaze. He lowered his head and put a piece of fish into his mouth. I wasn't in a hurry, just watched him try to escape. After a while, seeing that I didn't say anything further, he finally looked up and sighed. I'm sorry. He started a conversation with me. I didn't refuse. Sure enough, I guessed correctly. My ex-boyfriend had no stance, no real backbone. I accepted his apology. He was surprised by my decisiveness, so much so that he swallowed all the excuses he had prepared. So, shall we get back together? He tried to ask casually, but his hand holding the chopsticks trembled slightly. I reached out a finger to touch his hand, winking playfully. Has the university entrance exam ended yet? Don't let it affect your grades. In the afternoon, during recess, I was about to go to the supermarket. Daniel blocked my way. He was completely different from his usual gentle self, looking at me with a cold face. What else are you planning to do? I found his question confusing. Unable to figure it out, I asked back, what are you talking about? He seemed a little agitated. Why are you still involved with Ken? Lynn has already dropped out. Be careful not to fall into a bottomless pit. I forced a smile at the corner of my mouth. You've done enough, don't interfere anymore. His eyes were full of worry, mixed with impatience. I suddenly realized he knew more than I thought. He still persistently advised me, you guessed right, but they won't get married anymore. Don't blame me for talking too much. Things are progressing well, you should live for yourself. Don't do unworthy things for unworthy people. My guess wasn't wrong. This cousin of mine, this tool, was also reborn. I don't clearly remember how I left, only that the sunlight that day was incredibly dazzling. But even more dazzling was the gaze behind my back. I decided to use their own methods to retaliate. Although I didn't want to do it, Daniel was the most suitable person. good grades, stable family background, and recognized by everyone as a good person. Then let Ken also taste the feeling I once tasted. I started using various excuses to approach my cousin. He understood my intentions and didn't agree with my methods, but seeing me keeping Ken at arm's length, he couldn't help but feel happy. In the dead of night, Ken blocked my path, grinding his teeth as he pinned me against the wall. "What are you doing?" I calmly faced his face, red with anger. "Who are you to tell me what to do, my ex-boyfriend?" Just like in my previous life, I threw the bouquet in Lynn's face. Before Ken pushed me into the water, he also yelled, "Who are you to treat her like that?" It's a pity he didn't have memories of his past life. If he did, he would surely find these words ironic and repetitive. That would be the most watchable drama of the year. The questioning look in Ken's eyes disappeared, replaced by wordless anger, which finally gradually calmed down. He walked away with heavy steps, like a lost soul. I turned my back, propped my hands on the wall, panting, trying to extinguish the surging feeling of triumph in my heart. After lights out, everyone was already in bed. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I secretly went out to the balcony, propped my chin, and gazed at the stars. The occasional chirping of birds came from the nearby tree. I quietly enjoyed the tranquil night. The boys' dormitory opposite suddenly became chaotic. Lights in the rooms flickered on continuously. Ken and Daniel were fighting. To be precise, Ken was unilaterally attacking. Ms. Lee had to rush to the dormitory to handle it. I heard she was sound asleep when the security guard called her. Ken clenched his fists, standing ramrod straight, red blood stains dotted on his bandages. Facing Ms. Lee's sternness, he stubbornly refused to reveal the reason. In the end, he was disciplined, a week of suspension and one serious demerit. The next day, I saw Daniel with a Band-Aid on his face, my heart full of guilt. "Why didn't you fight back?" He forced a bitter smile, but it pulled on his wound, making him wince in pain. "I was standing on principle," he said. I was amused by his foolish yet righteous words. "Lift your head. Come on, I'll treat you to ice cream." After that, Ken returned to school. The relationship between us immediately reverted to its icy state. He no longer had everyone's favor as before and became much more taciturn. Labels like love-struck and pitiable gradually came off me. I had got my revenge and felt it was enough. Now was the time to fulfill the regrets of my previous life. In 12th grade, because the dormitory lights turned off on time, it wasn't convenient. I rented an apartment outside school, and my mother came to live with me to help with my studies. Under the desk lamp, the sounds of turning pages and writing echoed throughout the night. Finally, I was admitted to an art university out of province with 641 points. Sitting in the lecture hall, watching the lecturer passionately teach, I remembered the 3 years of confusion in my previous life. Losing my direction because of Ken and because of myself. It felt like it happened yesterday. In the silent library, I had read more than half of the book someone had left behind. My phone screen lit up, displaying a familiar yet strange string of numbers. I had remembered that number for so many years. The contact name had been deleted long ago but was still etched in my mind. I paused for a few seconds, then took my phone and left the library. He was very persistent, clearly showing his attitude. If I didn't answer, he wouldn't hang up. I pressed the answer button. A polite but distant voice said, "Hello, Sophie, it's Ken." He still seemed unable to let go. I moved the phone away from my ear, decisively ended the call, then dragged the number into my blacklist like flowing clouds and water. I was very happy because I truly no longer had any lingering feelings. That year, I returned to visit my old school and Ms. Lee. On the wall of fame for outstanding alumni, my photo hung in the center, Daniel's above mine. As for Ken and Lynn, who once stood in those positions in my previous life, they were now just idle gossip for younger students whenever they had free time. I heard Ken failed his exams, only got into an ordinary university, and is now thousands of miles away from me. I heard that not long after Lynn dropped out, she got a new boyfriend, a rich kid who dropped out early. I heard that after being cheated on for a year, she's now preparing to go abroad. That's good, let's never meet again. I have my own brilliance, and as for you all, you might as well rot.